I haven't talked about aliens for a while on this channel, so what better way to bring it back than to talk about cattle mutilation. A few of these images can be quite disturbing, but I'm going to throw a few examples of what cattle mutilation is up on the screen now while I read out what exactly cattle mutilation is. So, cattle mutilation is the killing and mutilation of cattle. Some wild animals are affected by this, but it's usually the cattle, which is the sheep, horses, goats, pigs, rabbits, and then it can even range from cats and dogs to household pets, and the wild animals can be deers, elk, bison, etc. But there's often something missing when these cattle are found, or animals. It could either be eyeballs, ears, jaw flesh, tongues, and other strange body parts. As I've thrown those pictures on the screen there, you may be thinking, well, there's a reasonable explanation for this decomposition by things like maggots and worms and other animals. They're just going for what they fancied for the tea that night. But people aren't so sure. There's also predators that can go for this, but it's the bloodless that's throwing people, and the fact how for some reason, like a cow for instance, which is a pretty common cattle mutilation picture, its jaw's gone and its eyeballs gone. Like why would an animal choose to do that? I know maggots sometimes go for the softer flesh, so like the eyeballs, but it's just strange how there's just no blood loss whatsoever. So people went towards cults, saying, oh, there could be some cults within this that are worshipping the devil and they are sacrificing certain parts of animals or entire animals. But then the one I want to talk about is, like I mentioned at the start, aliens. Aliens are being associated with this, and apparently they are drawing blood from these animals, taking different sections of the animals and taking them up into the sky into their labs to run a few tests and to see. Well, to be honest, I don't know, but apparently they're just running tests. I haven't spoken with an alien. I reached out to one, he didn't get back to us to give us an opinion, but they are apparently running tests on cattle. Don't know why cattle, but they've chose cattle and other animals. So this video, I'll run through the history of cattle mutilation and where it started and how it's progressed to be what it is today. So I'll take you back in time to 1606 in London, when there was sheep found dead in mysterious ways. Blood loss, parts missing, the usual cattle mutilation crack. These mutilations were recorded in the official records of James I of England, and they were in the London area and neighbouring shires, and some mutilations even got up to 100 sheep at a time. Back then they weren't even associated with aliens. I don't even think they knew what aliens were, but it was until 1974 when people started claiming that aliens were doing this, and they started throwing that curveball in there and saying, well, this could be alien activity. So I'll take you back to 1967 on the King Ranch, come on, in Colorado, where their beloved horse, Snippy, that was only 3, was found defleshed from the neck up and bits of organs hanging out, other parts of skin removed off its leg. It was not nice at all, but they did not have a clue what this was and thought this is definitely something really strange, either a crazy predator or some madman walking about doing dodgy stuff to these cattle. So they thought it would be best to report the incident. It didn't just spread around in Colorado, but it went to neighbouring states and even further and was widespread across the country. So an investigation was put into place due to the widespread media coverage. Wadsworth Eyre done the investigation on Snippy and concluded that there was nothing abnormal about what had taken place and it was just natural causes. But why does he get to decide what's abnormal and what isn't? Is he some biologist? In fact, he was a member of the Condon Committee, which was the informal UFO project of the University of Colorado. This committee was even funded by the US Air Force between 66 and 68. So right bang in the middle, 67 is when this took place. All studies were by the direction of a physicist at the University of Colorado called Edward Condon, hence the Condon Committee. So Nebraska now, 1974, August 20. Lincoln Journal-Star had reported that residents were claiming that helicopters were flying over fields shining the spotlights. These were just random fields, but these fields were later found to have mutated cattle in them. So the sheriff came out and exclaimed that he knew nothing about these helicopters. So there weren't police, and he didn't know of any residents who were flying about in the area, but surely the other residents would have known. So these unidentified helicopters were flying over, shining lights into these mutated cattle fields. Bit suspicious. Now, in 1979, the FBI said that there had been 8,000 mutated cattle reports alone. By in 79, 8,000 just in Colorado. This apparently costs around $1 million worth of damage. In South America, it's estimated that there's been 3,500 cattle mutilations, and only 400 have been reported to authorities. And this is since 2002. And now we'll come up to 2019 in Sylvia's Valley Ranch, where 5 bulls were mutilated. One was weighing around 2,000 pounds and was worth $6,000. The owners of the ranch put out a $25,000 reward for anyone who knew any information on the mutilations of these cattle, whether it was a human or something else. So aliens and cattle mutilation are being associated a lot now because they are just so bizarre. So bizarre. And then you've got these unidentified flying objects. People were saying helicopters, but they are UFOs. And they are shining lights in fields, either looking for cattle, dropping cattle off, or whatever. But there's just something not quite right with this. I can try and find some more videos on certain cattle mutilation, whether there's aliens that have been seen. So a video where there's a UFO and then later being reported mutilated cattle. But I also briefly mentioned in 1979 the FBI investigated this. So I can do a video on that as well, so that'll be coming soon. But I just wanted to get the first few facts out there about cattle mutilation because it's such a huge topic. So now let's go on to sightings and videos in a later point. Now I've covered what cattle mutilation is. So if you like this video, please check this one out here. Please stick with me while I look for paranormal sightings and events that are beyond my belief.